Well, with Kamala Harris flailing in the polling data, she is now headed down to the southern border today, part of the most consequential election of our lifetime, which is just 38 days away. The mainstream media will not tell you the truth. We will. Over here at Daily Wire Plus, we cut through the lies and deliver real, unfiltered news every single day. Join us as we fight the left and build the future. dailywire.com/subscribe. So as we say, the polling data at this point, it remains absolutely conflicting. We have a new poll that is from Bloomberg News and Morning Consult, and it shows her with a solid lead in Pennsylvania, 5% lead. In Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, it says that she has a 3% lead. In North Carolina, it shows a 2% lead for her, and it shows that she is tied in Georgia. The Morning Consult poll tends toward Kamala Harris. It has for quite a while at this point. But the same day that Morning Consult poll shows her with a durable lead in Arizona of 3 points, there's another poll from Suffolk USA Today that shows Donald Trump up 6 points in Arizona. So that is a 9-point delta. In other words, I have no idea. You have no idea. Nobody has any idea. At this point, this is a jump ball election about as much as it is possible for an election to be a jump ball. And again, Kamala Harris is not a good candidate. Even the New York Times admitted yesterday that awful interview she did with MSNBC was awful. Now, there are only a couple of reasons why the New York Times would say that. One is they believe that she is so far ahead of it, she's doing such an amazing job that they can afford to get on the record that she's not very good at this and thus shore up their credibility. That's possibility number one. You saw that logic apply after the debate between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, where the entire legacy media, humiliated, decided they had to briefly tell the truth about Joe Biden before going back to sleep. So that's possibility number one. They think that she is durably winning, and so they can afford to kind of ding her. The other possibility is that they are sounding the alarm and getting on record now that she is not very good at this. And I got to say, I think it might be the second. The New York Times yesterday reports Harris has a lot of strengths. Giving interviews isn't one of them. That's a very nice way of putting that. Name her strengths. What are they? According to Rebecca Davis O'Brien, in her dizzying ascent to the top of the Democratic ticket, Ms. Harris has proved to be a disciplined and effective debater and a tireless campaigner, nimble and energetic in rallies. But one-on-one televised interviews with journalists have long been a weakness in her political arsenal. She often winds her way slowly toward an answer, leaning on jargon and rehearsed turns of phrase, using language that is sometimes derided as word salad, but might be better described as a meringue. Wow, that's, again, a nice way of putting it that she has no idea what she's talking about literally any of the time. So, with her election basically having reached peak brat and then sort of receding back to the mean, she now is forced to move beyond platitudes and actually go places that are sort of uncomfortable for her. Again, she keeps trying the platitudes. She tweeted out yesterday, quote, "I want Americans to be able to save for their child's education, take a nice vacation from time to time, and buy Christmas presents for their loved ones without feeling financial stress. That's what my economic plan will build toward." That's a thing she actually tweeted. And I want world peace. She's the miscongeniality of presidential candidates. I'm looking forward to building an economy where everybody has a great time. What is this garbage? So she's headed down to the border today. She's trying to close the gap with Donald Trump on the border issue. When it comes to the economy, she has closed some of the gap that was left by Joe Biden. And part of that is that the Federal Reserve has been lowering those interest rates. Part of it is that we haven't had a sort of full-scale unemployment crisis in the United States. Everybody just feels kind of uncomfortable about the embedded inflation that's happened over the course of the last 3.5 years, the wage declines. But it's not as though the economy is truly in the toilet. We're not talking about like a 2008 level economy here. So because of that, she's been able to disconnect from Joe Biden's policies just enough that she's been able to gain a little bit of ground on the economy, even though she still trails Donald Trump on the economy. Where she really trails is on immigration. And so she is headed down to the border today to try and pretend that she's actually a hardcore border hawk. Not even joking. After presiding over the worst administration in the history of the southern border, she's going to now pretend that she's a border hawk who wants law and order on the border. So Kamala is going to go down to the border to lie. She and the administration are also taking the worst possible position in the Middle East right now. Right now, there is a war going on in the Middle East. Israel is attacking Hezbollah. They are in southern Lebanon doing amazing work, but it's not just the Israeli army doing that. It's also the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. They're not just talking, they're acting. They're on the ground providing bomb shelters, emergency supplies, and financial relief to families in distress, but they're not stopping there. As we approach the one-year mark of October 7th, the fellowship is launching something extraordinary. They're partnering with over 230 organizations across America for the Flags of Fellowship campaign. Here's what's happening. On October 6th, thousands of Americans will plant Israeli flags in their churchyards. Each flag represents a victim, a life cut short. It's a powerful visual tribute that sends a clear message. We remember and we will never forget. This isn't just about remembering the victims. It's about honoring the heroes, praying for those still held hostage, showing the world the unwavering support of Christians for Israel and the Jewish people. Now, I know many of you are asking, Ben, how can I help? Well, let me tell you. You can be part of the Flags of Fellowship, too. There's a tremendous need for food and basic supplies for evacuated families trying to survive in communities impacted by the ongoing war. A missile from Yemen just fell in Tel Aviv last night. That's why I'm asking 1,200 of my listeners today to make a gift of $100 to help provide emergency food boxes for a displaced family in Israel. Israel needs our support now more than ever, so here's what I need you to do right now. Go to benforthefellowship.org. That's benforthefellowship.org. Let's show the world that when Israel is under attack, we don't back down, we step up. Remember, benforthefellowship.org. God bless and thank you. This administration has let in somewhere between 7 and 10 million illegal immigrants into the country. Just let them willy-nilly into the country. And somehow she is now going to play the game that she is the tough one on the border. According to Politico, VP Harris will make her first visit to the U.S.-Mexico border, traveling to the small town of Douglas, Arizona. What she's expected to say while there is a reflection of the political reality she faces. Tough border talk in an attempt to dull Donald Trump's attack on the issue while laying blame for the status quo at his feet. Well, again, good luck with that. The fact is that laying the status quo at his feet ignores the fact she's the current vice president of the United States. I don't know how many times I have to say this. She's the vice president of the United States. Right now, Joe Biden has said over and over and over, she is the last person in the room. He said on The View just 2 days ago that she was delegated power on every issue of this administration. How does she turn around then and claim that Donald Trump is responsible for the border crisis that is entirely the creation of this administration? Apparently, Harris is going to argue that American sovereignty requires setting rules at the border and enforcing them. Oh, you think? That might have been nice to know while you were literally telling Border Patrol that their number one job was facilitating illegal entry into the country. That's what she told them. That's what she and Joe Biden told them. I know because I went down to the border to investigate it. We literally did a ride along with the Border Patrol. And what they showed us is that there was no one staffed at the border. Because the way that it now works is that the Mexican drug cartels are in control of the border. They drive up with truckloads of illegal immigrants. They release them at the border. And then the part of the border I was at, which was an Indian reservation in an Native American reservation in Arizona, there was a literal button you pushed to call for Border Patrol help. They would arrive, you would shout asylum, and then they would take you to a processing facility. And within 72 hours, you were being released into the country. Why were the Mexican drug cartels doing that? Because they understood that if they put a magnet that was a giant group of illegal immigrants there, and the first priority was processing those illegal immigrants, then the Border Patrol, like iron filings to the magnet, would have to go there, leaving the rest of the border completely unoccupied so as to allow for the gigantic scale smuggling of fentanyl, trafficking, and other criminal activities across the border. That is Kamala Harris's policy. She's apparently going to call for more resources for Border Patrol agents to do their job. But again, I've spoken with the Border Patrol. The question is not one of resources. The question is one of the legal structures under which they operate. The question is whether they have to immediately treat people who claim asylum as actual asylum possibilities, or whether they can turn them away at the border. She's going to propose new detection machines for fentanyl at border entry points. That's not where most of the fentanyl is crossing. The vast majority of fentanyl that is coming into the country is coming in undetected, not through ports of entry. It is coming in across, for example, this Native American reservation at the border between Mexico and Arizona. She apparently will decry Trump's failure as president to address this challenge and his recent efforts to kill bipartisan solutions to it, and say the American people deserve a president who cares more about border security than playing political games. She doesn't care about border security. This is a joke, and we all know it. But again, she's been able to sort of swing the media behind her to push this false narrative. We'll see if that lasts. The thing is, it's all a lie. It's all a lie. The actual ideological predilection of the Democratic Party and of Kamala Harris is the George Soros program that I'm trying to hide anymore. So a couple of years ago, George Soros decided that he was going to hand over the running of the Open Society Foundation, which is his deeply left-wing, really ugly 501c3. It's responsible for the appointment and election of extraordinarily radical DAs in major cities across America, fostering the BLM riots. They're responsible for a bunch of open border policy. The Open Society Foundation has been a blight on the West since its launch. Okay, but George Soros has handed control of that Open Society Foundation over to his son, Alex Soros, who is now married to Huma Abedin, who you remember as the buddy friend of both Anthony Weiner and she was his wife, and Hillary Clinton. Relationship unspecified. In any case, yesterday, photos were released of Alex Soros with Tim Walz at his apartment overlooking the proletariat. This picture is pretty glorious. It's Alex Soros, who looks exactly like you would think he would look. He looks like he's a namby-pamby tech bro from San Francisco. And he's standing above the New York skyline, showing Tim Walz, who is, once again, always in subservient position. He's showing him what it means to be an elite, helping to run the world. I mean, I'm not sure you could possibly create a more conspiratorial-looking photo than this. The supplicant politician, slightly bent, slightly prone toward the scion and heir of the billionaire financier, promoting wild left-wing policy. It really is pretty incredible. Now, again, the Open Society Foundation has spent billions on American politics. Literal billions. Over the course of 3 decades, the Open Society Foundations have spent across the West some $22 billion. An enormous amount of money. According to CNBC back in January 2023, the Open Society Foundation put $140 million into politically charged groups in the buildup to the 2022 midterm elections. So, of course, they're going to Alex Soros for more money. And again, Alex Soros is a big Kamala Harris backer. Soros took this photo with Kamala Harris and tweeted out, as soon as she became the nominee, that he was in support of her. This is a flashback to July. He said, "It's time for us all to unite around Kamala Harris and beat Donald Trump. She is the best and most qualified candidate we have. Long live the American dream." Alex Soros does not know much about the American dream, since he was literally just handed everything he has ever had. Everything. So there they are, buddy. Alex Soros and Kamala Harris. Now, whenever you mention Soros, I understand that there is a cadre in the media who have a relationship with Jewishness that, shall we say, is fraught, that suddenly decides that it's anti-Semitic to point out that Alex Soros and George Soros have spent literally billions of dollars on promoting far-left policy across the West. That's just a reality. Okay, that is not anti-Semitic in any way, shape, or form. I feel like I have some of the bona fides to speak to this. Alex Soros pouring money behind the Democrats, having the Democratic candidates he's not meeting them at a fundraiser, coming to his apartment on bended knee to ask what they can do for him, is a pretty impressive show of force by the Alex Soros wing of the party. So when the vice presidential candidate for the Democratic Party shows up at your apartment on bended knee, you know who works for who. But when you are trying to get people to work for your company, where do you find them? Well, we live in a time where we expect things to happen very quickly. The internet procures answers to pretty much everything. You can touch an app, a car will pick you up within minutes. You can order pretty much everything. It can be delivered the next day. So here's the question. Of the things that are still slow in your life, what do you wish could happen fast? How about hiring for your business? This is why you need ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter knows how to get things done quickly and efficiently. They don't just cast a wide net and hope for the best. ZipRecruiter's cutting-edge technology actively seeks candidates with the skills and experience you need. If you're a business owner, you know it takes a lot of time to build your business and hire for it. But with ZipRecruiter, the hiring part is much faster. See for yourself. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the very first day. Right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at this exclusive web address, ZipRecruiter.com/dailywire. Once again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/dailywire. We here at the Daily Wire have been using ZipRecruiter ourselves for years, which is why we have such awesome people who work for us. Go check it out yourself, ZipRecruiter.com/dailywire, and try it out for free at ZipRecruiter.com/dailywire. So what exactly does Alex Soros actually believe? What exactly does he believe? He believes the most left-wing things that is possible for him to believe. So, for example, on immigration, like if we're going to talk about Kamala Harris being some sort of border hawk, we should point out at this point there's a reason the Open Society Foundations are finding a way to support Harris Walz with such alacrity and enthusiasm. For example, November 1st, 2021, this is a press release from the Open Society Foundations. The Open Society Foundations today announced $1.3 million to support frontline organizations working to aid Haitian and Black migrants dislocated, detained, and expelled as they sought asylum and safety at the U.S. southern border this fall. This funding will help provide legal services to Haitian asylum seekers arriving at the southwest border and support advocacy to protect their rights. It will further enable Black-led organizations to champion more broadly the humane treatment of all Black immigrants seeking safety and stability in the United States. And then, of course, the Open Society Foundation, in this press release, promoted the lie that the Border Patrol was whipping Haitian migrants with horse reins, which, of course, was not true. Open Society support is an emergency response to an ongoing humanitarian and human rights crisis, including the dehumanizing abuse at the Del Rio Ciudad Acuna International Bridge, where thousands of Haitians had gathered in search of protection and the chance for a better life. U.S. Border Patrol agents met them with violence, some on horseback, wielding the reins on their horses like whips, a grim reminder of the racial oppression marking some of the most shameful chapters of America's past. Alexander Soros said, quote, "The treatment of Haitian migrants at the southern border is unconscionable and a stain on our country's standing across the region and among Black Americans. The damage done by these policies will last long after the headlines fade. These policies must change, accountability must be served, and the basic dignity and rights of the tired and poor yearning to be free are honored here. We are proud to support organizations working on overdrive to help thousands through this crisis." And again, this is what the Open Society Foundation is. The Open Society Foundation, led by Alex Soros, is a far-left organization. It is impossible to think of any cause that is far-left that they do not support, in fact. And they do everything from supporting extraordinary COVID-19 lockdowns to supporting open borders to pushing for quote-unquote criminal justice reform, which is designed to defund the police, to push democratic voting groups, and to push for censorship via social media. Right? That's what the Open Society Foundations do. And those are the people that Kamala Harris is cultivating each and every single day. It's not just Kamala Harris, of course, it's the Biden administration in total. According to the Washington Examiner's Gabe Kaminsky, excellent reporter, Alex Soros has visited Joe Biden's White House at least 24 times since 2021. He has visited 25 times between October 2021 and May 2024. His latest appearance was for a state dinner. The White House visits illustrate how Alex Soros has gained influence in the Biden-Harris administration and likely would continue to have the ear of top officials in a Harris-Walz administration. He was widely photographed attending meetings with Democrats at the DNC in Chicago in August. Of course, so was Huma Abedin. Again, these are the people that have the ear of Kamala Harris. So do you believe that she's going down to the border to shut it down? She's taken money from the most open borders organization in the United States. By the way, when you go down to the border, one of the things that you will see is that there are organizations that set up near the border to facilitate illegal entry. They put signs saying, if you want to get in, basically come this way. If you want to avoid border patrol, come this way. Now, maybe they're good-hearted, or maybe they're actually facilitating illegal activity. Because it turns out that, again, the Biden administration's policy has been so open door that the only people who are avoiding ports of entry for the first 3 years of the Biden administration are actual criminals. But you will see signs, they're actual signs, we have footage of it, saying, go to this house, go to this place, and our organization will meet you there, facilitating actual illegal activity. And many of these types of organizations are funded by organizations like the Open Society Foundation. It's not just, by the way, that they are radically open border. They also happen to, by the way, Alex is even more far leftist than George, probably. But it's not just that they are radically open border. They're also radically anti-Western generally. They've stood in favor of, for example, pretty much every front group for Palestinian terror that exists. The Open Society Foundations have promoted ridiculous left-wing anti-Israel groups like J Street, the Open Societies Foundation, and the Foundation to Promote an Open Society, which is the same thing. Those organizations support the so-called Tides Foundation. The Tides Foundation is then used as a sort of pass-through for anti-Semitic groups like Students for Justice in Palestine. The Open Society organizations also gave money to the Education for Just Peace in the Middle East, the overarching organization for the U.S. campaign for Palestinian rights, which, of course, is another one of these radical pro-Hamas groups. Open Society Foundation has been a thorn in the side of the pro-Israel side for a very long time. So it is no wonder, of course, that the Democratic Party which has become increasingly anti-Israel and openly anti-Semitic in many ways, that they are seeking the support of somebody like Alex Soros. And it's also no surprise that the White House continues to foster awful policy in the Middle East. Many of the groups that are out there protesting are supported by groups that are in turn supported by people like Alex Soros. That's how the money flows. So when you see protesters who are getting arrested by the cops last night in New York because they're getting violent, understand that this stuff doesn't generally happen for free. Somebody is paying for this. Now, some of it is actually paid for by like Iranian front groups. There have been full-scale investigations into that. But some of it is just paid for by left-wing interest groups. People like Alex Soros, if not Alex Soros' groups themselves. Those are the people to whom the Harris Walls campaign is in hock. And these are the other people that the Alex Soros ideologues are paying. Here, for example, some footage last night of NYPD officers taking on anti-Israel protesters. In this video, you can hear people screaming at the cops, and they're the people who are attempting to crowd the cops are pretending that they are victims of the police, of course. And then this breaks into some open violence. There's some arrests that are made. Well, these protesters undoubtedly went to some of America's top universities where they learned how to be morons. But you can go to a university that doesn't teach you those things, teaches actually good things. How about Grand Canyon University? That's a private Christian university in beautiful Phoenix, Arizona. GCU believes we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. GCU believes in equal opportunity and that the American dream starts with a purpose. GCU equips you to serve others in ways that promote human flourishing and create that ripple effect of transformation for generations to come. By honoring your career calling, you impact your family, your friends, and your community. Whether you're pursuing a bachelor's, master's, or doctoral degree, GCU's online, on-campus, and hybrid learning environments are designed to help you achieve your unique academic, personal, and professional goals. With over 330 academic programs as of December 2023, GCU meets you where you are and provides a path to help you fulfill your dreams. The pursuit to serve others, that's yours. Find your purpose at Grand Canyon University. Private, Christian, affordable. Visit gcu.edu. Again, that's gcu.edu. Grand Canyon University, where they teach you actual things that you need to know. gcu.edu. Meanwhile, the pro-Hamas, pro-Hezbollah protesters all over New York City last night, literally unleashing smoke and marching around with flags of actual honest-to-God terror groups. Whenever you hear from the Kamala Harris campaign that they are moderate in any way, understand the people they are taking money from are not in any way moderate, and they expect something in return. Alex Soros, standing above the New York skyline with Tim Walz in supplicant fashion, is the story of the Harris Walls campaign. When she goes down to the border and she says that she's pro a strong border, understand the people who are signing her checks are people like Alex Soros who want an open border. It is an actual goal for them to have an open border, ideologically speaking. Now, meanwhile, the Biden administration continues to play its own idiotic part in fostering conflict across the globe. The White House continues to promote the idea that there's going to be a 21-day ceasefire with Hezbollah in Lebanon that will allow a space for negotiations with Hamas and Hezbollah. First of all, who are you negotiating with? Hezbollah's leadership has been reduced to Hassan Nasrallah in a room alone with a mirror. Hamas's leadership may be dead. Yahya Sinwar has been missing for weeks at this point. Plus, there's been no movement whatsoever from Hezbollah to say we're going to pull back of the Litani River. We're going to pull back north and leave southern Lebanon unoccupied with rockets and missiles aimed at Israeli cities and Israeli civilians. And yet the Biden administration, as always, they just keep shouting ceasefire, ceasefire, ceasefire without any actual plan to achieve anything. The White House pretends to be befuddled. The only thing that is befuddling is why the White House would think that magically saying ceasefire would achieve a ceasefire with terrorists. National Security spokesperson John Kirby told reporters a lot of care and effort was put into that statement. Remember the statement that we read yesterday on the show, the one that suggested that Israel and Lebanon should both pull back, neglecting the fact Lebanon is not the party to the conflict. Hezbollah is the party to the conflict. It's absurd. We wouldn't have made that statement if we didn't have reason to believe the conversations we were having with the Israelis in particular were supportive of that goal. The statement wasn't just drawn up in a vacuum, said John Kirby. It was done after careful consultation, not only with the countries that signed on to it, but Israel itself. Well, actually, what Israel apparently said is, we'd be willing to sign on to a ceasefire if Nasrallah and Hezbollah do the things that they are supposed to do. The White House then blasted out that statement as though Israel was supportive of a ceasefire without any preconditions. They played this game, as you'll recall, with the Hamas ceasefire negotiations just a few months back. Israel said, listen, if Hamas hands over the hostages, and if they go into exile, and if we retain control over the border between Gaza and Egypt, then we'll talk about a ceasefire. And the Biden administration just cut off the entire statement and just said they've agreed to a ceasefire. And Israel's like, well, no, we didn't actually. Those were not the terms. And then they blame Israel. And that's the predicate that's being set up, is Israel is the problem, as always. That, of course, is being promoted by absolute moral clowns like Bernie Sanders, a career useless human being. It is a wonder to me that in the West, people like Bernie Sanders are treated with any level of respect at all. He'd be digging ditches in the Soviet Union if he had his way, until they realized that he was actually useless at digging ditches, and then he would have been gulagged. In any case, Senator Bernie Sanders has now called for a block on all arms sales to Israel. In his statement, he says Israel clearly had the right to respond to Hamas's horrific terrorist attack, but Prime Minister Netanyahu's extremist government has not simply waged war against Hamas. It has waged an all-out war against the Palestinian people. That, of course, is a lie. It is not true. And now he is claiming that Israel's activities against Hezbollah are somehow also bad. This is the shtick. And again, the Biden administration continues to sort of follow this pattern. They're not doing a full-scale arms block because they understand that that would be unpalatable politically. But Kamala Harris has threatened to do these things. Kamala Harris is having talks with pro-Hamas parties in the United States, and they're happening behind closed doors, and you don't know exactly what she is promising. Bill Maher has had it, for what it's worth. And Bill Maher, who is going to vote for Kamala Harris, he has made that clear, does not like Donald Trump. But even Bill Maher on HBO was like, this is ridiculous at this point. How many times can you say Israel has a right to defend itself, and then the minute Israel defends itself, you immediately turn around and tell them not to do it?
Here's what Kamala Harris said this week about what we should do when the war is over. No reoccupation of Gaza, no changing of the territorial lines of Gaza, and an ability to have security in the region for all concerned in a way that we create stability. I feel like if that's what you have to say, don't say anything. Just shut up. I mean, everybody who talks about Israel these days is just so full of shit. I mean, or just not, I don't want children to die. Duh, who does? None of us want children to die. None of us want this war to go on. But it's not addressing what the problem is. The problem is that one side wants a two-state solution, or at least always did. It's a little more right-wing now. I'm talking about Israel, but that still has been their position. One side never did and still doesn't. One side uses terrorism to get their goals. One side retaliates against terrorism. One side is accused of genocide but doesn't do it. The other side actually would love to do it. People keep saying Israel has the right to defend itself. And then whenever Israel does, they object to it.
So he is right about all of that. But that is not the position that's taken by the Harris-Walz campaign, and everybody knows that, of course. Well, Bill Maher is clear on this, but I'll tell you what's not clear right now, your cell phone coverage. And you're paying too much for it. So I'm going to let you in on a little wireless hack that can cut your cell phone bill in half every single month. The big phone providers want you to believe you need unlimited data so they can overcharge you. Well, here's the fact. Most of you are buying way more data than you will ever need. With Pure Talk, my cell phone company, you can choose how much data you actually want and you can save. Listen to this. For just $35 a month, you can get unlimited talk, text, and 15 gigs of data plus mobile hotspot on America's most dependable 5G network. You know what you can do with that much data? You can browse the internet for 500 hours. You can stream 3,000 songs. You can watch 30 hours of video. That's if you're not on Wi-Fi. Here is the best part. When you switch your cell phone service to Pure Talk on a qualifying plan, you get 1 year free of Daily Wire Plus Insider. That's access to the full library of DW Plus movies, series, and documentaries, including Lady Ballers, What is a Woman, Mr. Bertram, and Run, Hide, Fight. Plus, uncensored ad-free daily shows, 1 year free of our kids platform Benke, and your very own free Leftist Tears Tumblr. The only way you can get this special offer is by heading on over to puretalk.com/Shapiro or call and mention my name. Stop overpaying for your cell phone coverage. Go to puretalk.com/Shapiro today, switch to a qualifying plan, get 1 year free of Daily Wire Plus Insider. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris is also mirroring the positions of the Open Society Foundation and Alex Soros with regard to Ukraine. Now, again, I'm not claiming that Kamala Harris is being bribed to believe all these things. I'm pointing out that she's aligned with this entire agenda. She is. That's the reason the money is passing hands. The reason that people give money to politicians in general is for one of two reasons. One, to either buy influence, or two, to back a candidate who already backs the point of view they're fostering. Either one of those means that she is in alignment with Alex Soros, one of the most left-wing people in the West, period. So Kamala Harris, the Open Society Foundation, they're all on the same side with regard to Ukraine. It is totally unclear to me exactly what the investment is that George Soros has in Ukraine. And it's always been a very weird issue, Ukraine. It's become left-coded, the issue of Ukraine resisting a Russian invasion. Honestly, I think the reason it became so left-coded is almost as a response to what happened in the United States with Russiagate. At the right, because they were so pissed off at Russiagate, was like, well, is Russia that bad? And the left, because they were so pissed off at Russia, because they think that Russia stole the 2016 election, decided that they were finally going to become anti-Russian. But I'm old enough to remember when it was Barack Obama who was making kiss-ass moves toward Vladimir Putin and his allies. So it's all very puzzling. However, for whatever reason, Ukraine has become a left-coded issue in the United States and abroad. And because of that, Kamala Harris is out there actively campaigning using Volodymyr Zelensky. This is an amazing thing. It really is. I mean, imagine if during the 2020 election, Donald Trump had personally had Bibi Netanyahu to the White House and then had basically cudgeled Netanyahu into ripping on Democrats. That's effectively what Kamala Harris has done here. She's not even the president of the United States right now. She's the vice president of the United States. So what is she even doing in a meeting with Volodymyr Zelensky? There weren't a lot of Mike Pence, Bibi Netanyahu public events, for example, or even Mike Pence, Volodymyr Zelensky public events. You have to go as far as Israel. Anyway, Kamala Harris decides that she is going to do a campaign event because everything is now a campaign event. She's the one running for president. So she does a campaign event with Volodymyr Zelensky in which she uses the opportunity to meet with Zelensky to basically say that Donald Trump cannot be elected president of the United States, which is pretty incredible. So she starts off by saying that she's going to continue to stand with Ukraine. Again, the administration's standing with Ukraine has meant slow-walking aid sufficient to prevent the full-scale takeover of Kyiv, but certainly not enough to push the Russians to the table, apparently. Here is Kamala Harris.
As I have made clear on our 6 previous meetings and throughout Putin's brutal aggression and war against Ukraine, my support for the people of Ukraine is unwavering. I've been proud to stand with Ukraine. I will continue to stand with Ukraine, and I will work to ensure Ukraine prevails in this war.
Now, of course, she didn't stop there. She then went on to obliquely smack Trump and Vance while standing next to Zelensky. Now, honestly, I got to feel a little bad for Zelensky. Zelensky is the leader of a country that is currently under assault from a predator country. Okay, Russia is the predator in Ukraine. Whatever you think the rationale for the war was, I'm not sure whether you think that it's reasonable for Vladimir Putin to simply walk into Kyiv or not. I think very few people believe that in reality, that Vladimir Putin is the good guy in this particular conflict. So if you're Vladimir Zelensky and you're leading a besieged country, now with all of the flaws of his leadership and all of the problems with the measures that he's taken, and you're basically being forced by the current administration to do campaign events for the vice president, I fail to see how this is in any way different from what Donald Trump was impeached over. Truly. Donald Trump was supposedly impeached for forcing Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, to do campaign activities by targeting Joe Biden and Hunter Biden in Ukraine in order to receive aid. This is even more direct. This is Kamala Harris and Joe Biden flying Volodymyr Zelensky in so she can do campaign events where she rips her political opponent standing next to Volodymyr Zelensky. And the tacit threat is obvious, which is if you don't do this, then we will look askance at your own efforts. Right? You want to do us a solid? Wink, wink. You're going to have to show up. And you're going to have to do what Kamala Harris needs you to do. Now, normally, a foreign leader in a time of war tries to appeal to both sides. It may fail. Bibi Netanyahu has tried to appeal to Democrats and Republicans. Some Democrats are up for it. Many Democrats are not. But he at least attempts. Zelensky is trying to do the same thing. He's actually going to meet with Donald Trump. Despite all of their various problems between one another, Zelensky is apparently meeting directly with Trump. But that's not what Harris is doing. Harris and the White House, Harris and Biden, are bringing in Volodymyr Zelensky to the White House to do a campaign event for Kamala Harris. And this clip makes that clear. She's literally standing next to Zelensky, who's only there to obtain more aid from the United States to continue the war. And she is using him as a prop, as a human prop, in order to suggest that her political opponent wants Russia to win.
There are some in my country who would instead force Ukraine to give up large parts of its sovereign territory, who would demand that Ukraine accept neutrality and would require Ukraine to forego security relationships with other nations. These proposals are the same of those of Putin. And let us be clear, they are not proposals for peace. Instead, they are proposals for surrender, which is dangerous and unacceptable.
And Zelensky is standing there trying, not to react because he understands that Donald Trump may very well be the president, and that's the person who he's going to have to deal with. Really disgusting stuff. If this were a Republican vice president running for president, impeachable stuff, perhaps. But don't worry. The White House says the real problem here is that Republicans are pouncing. It's that you're politicizing the thing that we're politicizing. We politicized the thing, and now you're noticing, which is politicization. Here's Karine Jean-Pierre, world's worst press secretary, explaining it's a political stunt to investigate Volodymyr Zelensky's visit to the swing state of Pennsylvania to go to a munitions factory to hang out with Kamala Harris surrogate Josh Shapiro.
We would encourage the House Republicans to drop this. This is a political stunt. They need to drop this. And anything else, I think I gave a lot here, a lot of good layout of how this all occurred, but anything else specific, I would certainly refer you to the DOD.
Ridiculous people. Ridiculous people. It has nothing to do with politics. He just ended up in a swing state in the final weeks of an election, touring with Josh Shapiro. Weird how that worked. Super duper duper weird. Meanwhile, by the way, Trump is going to visit with Zelensky today. It's their first meeting since 2019. He said that at a news conference. Apparently, Zelensky confirmed the meeting as well. Trump, for what it's worth, has not said that he's going to withdraw aid from Ukraine. He has not. J.D. Vance has said things like that, but Trump has not said anything like that. Trump has actually made the case pretty obviously that he's going to continue to aid Ukraine sufficient to get Russia to the table, even if he wants Russia to come to the table with a better deal for Russia than, say, Zelensky wants. Well, meanwhile, the president of the United States, remember that guy? Remember him? He's still wandering the earth. We'll get to his latest activities in a moment. First, the Daily Wire's first ever theatrical release, Am I Racist?, remains a top 10 movie in America. It is verified hot at Rotten Tomatoes with a 97% audience score. The only thing better than seeing it in theaters is having a theater all to yourself. Now is the chance with Am I Racist? Theater Takeover Sweepstakes. One lucky winner will claim an entire theater for a private showing with 50 of their closest friends. Do you have that many friends? Perhaps you do. We'll provide the snacks and drinks. You just bring your crew and get ready for a hilarious night out. Plus, you'll roll up to your screening in style on a brand new Razor scooter. Oh yeah, just like Matt Walsh rides in the hit comedy. Get all the details right now at miracist.com. Also, this Sunday, we will be releasing a brand new episode of the Sunday Special with Dr. Drew Pinsky. Dr. Drew is a board-certified internist and addiction medicine specialist with over 35 years of experience in national TV and radio, as well as a New York Times bestselling author and host of the Dr. Drew podcast. In this episode, Dr. Drew shares his personal experience being censored by legacy media and also his views on the decay of the American medical establishment. Here's a bit of the trailer.
This is something I did not know until the COVID outbreak. 70% of physicians are employees. I didn't know that. If they raise their hand, they lose their job. And they were afraid. There was fear. Fear was rampant in my profession. And so people just shut the hell up. And you had hospital administrators dictating how doctors treated patients and telling patients to go home, come back when your O2 sat is 60%. This was astonishing to me. I kind of actually get nauseated when I think about it. It's just such a transgression of your oath.
Don't miss this incredible episode of the Sunday Special with Dr. Drew Pinsky. Well, meanwhile, you remember Joe Biden. He's the president of the United States. It is amazing to me that we've totally forgotten about this. I'll never get over this. I'll never get over the fact that because the Democratic Party wanted to forget that he is the president, while simultaneously keeping him in place so that she's not the president, everybody just went along with it. Everybody just forgot that this dead person is the president of the United States. The most powerful person on earth is a walking corpse, and everyone is just treating that as normal. It's totally insane. I understand it's all about the campaign. Republicans are focused on Kamala, and Kamala is focused on separating off from Biden. But this guy's still the president. So Joe Biden yesterday, he did some sort of presser about gun violence. And this is one of his favorite topics to be totally wrong on. So he trotted out many of his favorite lies. He suggested that back at the time of the revolution, it wasn't an unlimited right to have arms. No one could own a cannon. Well, actually, you could, because he doesn't understand how the Second Amendment was supposed to work in the first place. And then he just lied some more. So he suggested that Secretary Vance, that would be Senator Vance. He's not Secretary of anything. Senator Vance. He said that J.D. Vance suggested school shootings are facts of life. This is a lie. This is a lie. J.D. Vance suggested that school shootings have become a fact of life that needs to change. So the opposite of what Joe Biden is suggesting here. But honest to God, every time you look at Joe Biden, he looks about half a second of development of that last scene of Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade. And he's actively aging before our eyes into a skeleton. When he leaves office, he's just going to be a skeleton that crumbles into. He's not actually going to leave. They're just going to scoop him up off the floor. Here we go.
I'm going to be very blunt. Secretary Vance of Ohio has called these shootings facts of life. Who the hell do these people think they are?
Who do they think they are? Where's the fact check? Where's Daniel Dale on this one? Over at CNN. Gone? Yeah, I figured. Also, he then did his usual routine. I can't imagine why they replaced him on the ticket. Then he did his usual routine. He tried to trot out Beau Biden's death from brain cancer as somehow akin to gun violence or something. He's so awful. He really is. I mean, I think it's easy to forget how awful he is because he's no longer relevant to our electoral conversation. He's truly an awful man and an awful president. I've been to a lot of Shiva houses. Okay? Shiva houses are places you go when somebody has died. It's a house of mourning. When you go there, you know what people who have had people close to them die don't want to hear? About your experiences with how rough your life is when you lost somebody. They don't actually want to hear that. They want you to sit and listen. But every time Joe Biden meets somebody whose family member has died in any circumstance whatsoever, he starts jabbering about how it's just like Beau. And I got to tell you, it's at a certain point, I don't think that it's sincere. I don't think it's been sincere for quite a while. He treats it like any other campaign line at this point. Here it is.
I know from experience of other losses that this is bittersweet. We want us to be doing this, but it brings back the very moment it happened. No matter how long since it's occurred, you're here and you remember. Remember the first time you heard my son, my daughter, my mother, my father, my brother, my sister, somebody you lost. I know the feeling in a different context, and it's heartbreaking. So thank you for the courage to be here. I know the intensity of your feelings, but thank you because it really does require to relive the moment it occurred, and that's tough.
Oh man, I can't imagine why they defenestrated this guy. Can't imagine at all. Okay, in other news, Eric Adams, it turns out the charges against him are quite severe. The charges are all about him taking about $100,000 in secret benefits, including free flights on a Turkish airline and luxury hotel stays for about a decade. According to the Wall Street Journal, he tried to cover up the perks, including by creating fake paper trails and deleting messages with staffers involved in conduct. The prosecutor said he faces 5 felony counts, including for bribery, fraud, and soliciting a contribution by a foreign national. Well, the DA in this case, Damian Williams, U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, he said it was a multi-year scheme to buy favor with a single New York City politician on the rise, Eric Adams. Here was the U.S. Attorney explaining.
But as we allege, year after year after year, he kept the public in the dark. He told the public he received no gifts, even though he was secretly being showered with them.
Now, obviously, the real problem here is that Eric Adams did it the wrong way. If you're going to do it the right way, you have your son go to foreign countries and shower him with like millions and millions of dollars. And then you have him pay half your family's bills, according to his text messages. And then it's totally untraceable and uncoverable. And nobody notices. And it's all fine. And you're the president of the United States right now. So he just did it wrong, Eric Adams. He did it the dumb way. Now, the reality is, I do wonder about the valuation of these gifts. And they were suggesting that he was staying at hotels in Turkey that cost like tens of thousands of dollars a night. Are there tons of hotels in Turkey that cost tens of thousands of dollars a night? Eric Adams makes the case this is a targeted prosecution, that basically he's being singled out. And 2 things can be true at once. 1, he can have engaged in some bribery, some light bribery. And 2, it's also true that probably half the politicians in America have engaged in precisely the same thing. Here's Eric Adams.
I think you need to ask the federal prosecutors who gave the directive and the orders. I don't know, but we should ask them who gave the directive and orders that we're going to take on and create this group of lies. They have the answer to that question.
Apparently, at the request of a Turkish official who helped provide luxury travel, Adams in 2021 helped facilitate the opening of a 36-story Turkish consular building without a fire inspection. Well, that's a biggie. He also stopped associating with a community center affiliated with a political movement that was hostile to the Turkish government. Apparently, the relationship with Turkish officials dates back to 2015, when he took 2 official trips to the country that were paid for by the Turkish consulate and others. Unlike subsequent travel by Adams, both of those trips were properly reported in mandatory financial disclosure forms as an elected city official, and he enjoyed free perks on at least 7 trips overseas, according to prosecutors. He accepted 3 free business class tickets and a heavily discounted stay at the Bentley Suite at the St. Regis Istanbul. Apparently, he'd fly the Turkish airline because of the free tickets, even when it wasn't convenient. I mean, this is the dirty secret about politicians. Very often, the corruption is, in fact, penny ante stuff, like truly penny ante, which is why it's so breathtaking what Joe Biden did with Hunter Biden. The only thing that could make the story of Eric Adams' scandal funnier is if Matt Walsh had been there to document it. If you haven't seen Matt Walsh's new movie, Am I Racist?, you really need to. And then you need to get the all-new Am I Racist party game. Yes, there's a game. It's now available at dailywire.com/shop. Explore the wonderful world of diversity, equity, and inclusion as you and your friends do the work to figure out where y'all are in your anti-racist journeys. Challenge stereotypes. Have hot debates with over 200 cards to keep the party going. Ages 18 plus. Go to dailywire.com/shop to get Am I Racist, the game, today. Well, it turns out there are a bunch of funny things in this particular indictment. Apparently, there was a text exchange between one Turkish entrepreneur who is referred to in the indictment as the promoter, who spoke with one of Eric Adams' staffers about a scheme to funnel money from that person to the Adams campaign. The staffer was skeptical and thought it could cause a problem. Apparently, Adams then surprised him by giving him the go-ahead. Apparently, also, he agreed with a staffer that their communications should be for their eyes only, and they should delete all messages that were sent. It's pretty penny ante, amateur kind of stuff. That doesn't mean, however, that it's not damaging to Eric Adams, which, of course, it absolutely is. All I will say is that if we are going to ferret out corruption in the halls of power, I think we should probably also take a look at Nancy Pelosi's sale of stock. How many times can Nancy Pelosi make a killing on the stock market based on the inside information, allegedly, she has in Congress? According to Fox Business, Nancy Pelosi is receiving attention once again due to her husband's stock trading, this time over her spouse unloading Visa shares a few months before the federal government sued the company. Apparently, Paul sold 2,000 shares of Visa on July 1st for at least $500,000. And then a few months later, the DOJ filed a lawsuit against Visa. The amount of corruption, the sort of casual corruption that goes on at the highest levels of government in the United States is pretty astonishing. I mean, I will say it's less than other countries, but it's still pretty bad. Alrighty, folks, coming up, we'll get to California, where Gavin Newsom, I don't know what he's running for. Is he running for president of the Socialist Republic of China or something? I'm not sure exactly what he's doing. If you're not a member, become a member. Use code Shapiro at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans. Click the link in the description and join us.
The stage is set. The stakes are sky high. Senator Vance, Governor Walz, face off. But who will land the knockout punch? Don't watch the debate alone. Experience it with the most trusted names in conservative media. Daily Wire Backstage brings you unfiltered commentary, biting wit, and expert analysis you won't get anywhere else. Join Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, Michael Knowles, Andrew Klavan, and Jeremy Boring for a debate night you'll never forget. Daily Wire Backstage, Tuesday, October 1st, 8:30 Eastern, 7:30 Central, only on Daily Wire Plus.